CASAT Podcast Network.
Welcome to Season 5 of CASAT Conversations, a holistic look at mental health. Join us for a series of thought-provoking conversations that delve into the vast dimensions of mental well-being. From the intricate link between physical, emotional, and spiritual aspects of well-being to the latest scientific research, practices, and therapies, we navigate the multifaceted landscape of mental health together. We hope you enjoy today's conversation. Welcome to today's conversation. Today we have Dr. Felipe Schuch. Felipe obtained his master's and doctorate degrees in medical sciences and psychiatry from the Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul. He is currently an adjunct professor at the Federal University of Santa Maria. Welcome, Felipe. It's nice to have you here today.
Thank you very much, Heather, for having me. It's a great pleasure for me to talk with you all.
So as we get started, I'd love for you to just share a little bit about yourself so that our listeners can get to know you and understand your work.
Well, thank you very much. Yes. So I graduated in physical education, like exercise sciences here in Brazil. And I have been working in the mental health field area since 2008, probably. And my major research focus is in trying to understand how physical activity and exercise in movement in general can help people with mental health problems, and how exercise can make people feel better. This is basically what I'm trying to understand very briefly.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait for you to share your research with us. It's such an important topic as we look at mental health holistically. As we dive in, can you just share with us some of the physical and mental benefits of physical activity? I feel like physical activity from a public health perspective, right? Like it's like we all know we should be exercising and that there are benefits, but if you can just highlight those from your perspective.
Everybody knows that exercise have physical and mental health benefits. And obviously I'm much more interested in trying to understand what are the mental health benefits of exercise. And we have seen some research that we have published in the past years that, for example, more active people, they are less likely to develop depression and anxiety. For example, one study that we published in 2018 in the American Journal of Psychiatry demonstrated that those that have higher levels of physical activity are about 17 less likely to develop depression. And in another paper published in 2019, we have demonstrated that physical activity has protective effects against anxiety diagnosis and symptoms. And the protective effect is about to 23%. So basically, what changed in the past few years that we could provide an estimate of the effect size or understand more precisely how much exercise is beneficial in terms of protection against mental health problems, mainly depression and anxiety. And some other of our findings are that physical activity, that any physical activity can be beneficial. Like we know, for example, from a paper published in 2022, that we don't need to spend lots of hours exercising. And we know that, for example, every step counts. We know that even little amounts of physical activity can be related to a lower risk of developing depression. And that's a good message for in terms of public health, because some people may find challenging to achieve the public health recommendations of 150 minutes of moderate and vigorous physical activity per week. And as long as we can say that you can already get some benefits from lower amounts, it may facilitate for some people to engaging at some level of physical activity. So yes, this is something that's quite interesting from our perspective. And also we have seen that, especially for people with mental health problems, physical activity can be beneficial for their physical health. Because as some colleagues demonstrated that people with mental disorders, they have life expectancy shortened by 10 to 20 years, depending on the diagnosis and other comorbid conditions. But we have seen that the life expectancy is lower in this population. This can be largely attributed to other physical health conditions like metabolic diseases, like diabetes, like hypertension, and other conditions. And we know that physical activity can reduce the risk of developing cardiometabolic diseases. So this can be particularly beneficial for this population and for this group.
It also, I think, speaks to that interconnection between the mind and the body. And I'm curious, from a directional standpoint, like how does physical activity impact the mind?
Well, there are many, many ways. Basically, we try to understand the effects of physical activity using the neurobiological perspective or using the psychosocial perspective. We believe that physical activity can impact the mind through, for example, improving self-esteem, by improving self-efficacy, like something that's quite common for people with mental health problems is low esteem. Like they feel that they can't do anything, that they feel they are not capable of doing anything, they don't have energy, and they think that they will fail in everything they try to do. And eventually when you start to exercise with someone with depression, for example, and you can demonstrate that he or she is able to exercise, to do some amount of physical activity and have success in that, that's something that's quite beneficial. And people, when they experience success in exercise, this feeling can be translated to other areas of the individual's life, and this feeling may serve as a motivation and to try new things and to change the behavior in any other ways. So these are some aspects and some benefits of the exercise. And also we have some other mechanisms some other psychosocial mechanisms relate to the feeling of being connected to other persons. So while you are exercising, eventually you are connecting to other people, and these unspecific effects of exercise, of being connected to other people, of socialization, like you can say, can also have some impact and can explain a part of the effects of exercise and mental health. Some other mechanisms, and during the pandemic we could note how important it is distraction. When we are exercising, we can focus in other things, not staying ruminating in our bad feelings, in our bad moods, and eventually just thinking something else that's not our negative feelings can make us feel a little bit better. But also about the neurobiological mechanisms, we have some potential explanations that relate to the effects that exercise may have on neuroplasticity. Like we know that people with mental health disorders, they have structural and functional changes in the brain. And we know that exercise can change and can impact some brain structures like the hippocampus, for example. So we know that depression is associated with a smaller hippocampus. And on the other hand, we know that exercise can increase the hippocampal volume. So it's a potential, there's a potential link in this. When exercise can increase the hippocampus, and maybe this increase can be associated with symptom improvement. Another potential mechanism relates to inflammation. So we know that people with depression, they are in a pro-inflammatory state, like they are inflamed systemically. And we know that acutely exercise increase inflammation because there's muscle damage and the release of some pro-inflammatory markers. But there is an adaptive response where in subsequent to the pro-inflammatory markers release, there's the release of anti-inflammatory markers. And this upregulation may be beneficial to people with mental health disorders. As we know that people with depression and anxiety and schizophrenia and bipolar disorders, for example, they are in a pro-inflammatory state. So maybe exercise can bring balance to the system, and this can explain part, at least, the effects of exercise on mental health outcomes.
Thank you for highlighting all of that. Especially the brain structure, right? Like how exercise can change our brain structure. It's fascinating. I'm curious, does it matter what kind of exercise you do in order to support mental health? Like, are there certain types that are better for mental health, or what does that look like?
The best exercise is the one that is actually done. So that's a very important question. And we have seen some meta-analysis that actually doesn't matter that much what kind of exercise, if it's aerobic or if it's anaerobic, or in other words, if it's running, if it's walking, if it's strength training, it doesn't matter that much. The effects are quite similar. But we have seen that the context of the exercise, or what is related, where the exercise happens, when it happens, and who is together when you are exercising, are potentially more important than the exercise type itself. We have seen, for example, that the domain of the physical activity and the exercise matters a bit more than the type of physical activity. Like domain, I mean, doing exercise and physical activity for leisure, for fun, may be more beneficial than doing exercise when you are commuting, or exercise or physical activity or exercise when you are working, for example, or physical activity for home chores. Like it's much different. So we have seen that, for example, people spending long hours on physical activity while they are working, they may have much less benefit and even some detrimental effects on mental health outcomes compared to people that are not engaging in that much physical activity. So doing exercise because it's fun, because you enjoy, because it's the activity that makes you feel better, is much more beneficial than just doing exercise because you have to do, because it's part of your work, for example.
That makes so much sense to me. I work with a researcher, Dr. Brent Ruby, who has studied wildland firefighters, and he's studied them across the course of a season. And they're, in his research, he's found some deterioration at the end of the wildland fire season. And right, they're doing an incredible amount of physical activity in their work, but it is connected to work and not to the leisure and the fun, which is really interesting.
Yeah, indeed. It seems that having fun and enjoying the activity is an important factor for having some benefits from that. So if you are doing something because you are obligated to do, not the same fun and it's not the same benefit. There is an interesting paper from Markus Gerber from Switzerland, where the title is No Fun, No Gain. That's like the opposite idea of the no pain, no gain way of thinking. And that basically highlight the importance of enjoying the exercise, that having fun when you are exercising, because when you are having fun may potentialize the benefits and the effects of exercise.
I love that. It's so counterintuitive to a lot of the ways that I think people train sometimes, right? That no pain, no gain. And I love that no fun, no gain. That's really cool.
Yeah, so I think that the no pain, no gain, it's one of the worst things that happened to physical activity and exercise area. Is the worst message possible, because it's quite easy to make someone feel pain and feel uncomfortable when you are exercising. And obviously people that are just not feeling comfortable and are experiencing pain, they are less likely to engage in physical activity and exercise. And this is one of the reasons that we believe that many people just don't like exercise, because the focus has been so much in trying to improve fitness and trying to change their body composition. And when they are trying to do that, they just ignore their feelings. They just ignore that they need to feel well to engage in a behavior. And they are just putting so much effort and just ignoring that to be sustainable, any behavior, it must make you feel good, and also bring benefits and bring changes, and you have to achieve aims. But to be sustainable, you have to feel good while you're doing something.
Well, it also makes me think about, like, part of the benefit of physical activity is to support, your physical health, which is your body. But if you're punishing your body, then it bodes that it might not actually be the best for your physical health. Like if you're, whereas if you're caring for your body and doing something that feels good, that would have better benefits. I mean, it makes sense now that you explain it that way.
Yes, indeed. So yeah, the exercise that makes you feel good is the best one. So, and the most sustainable one as well. And as I said, the best exercise is the exercise that is actually done. And to be engaged in a long term, you just try to find out the best activity that makes you feel better.
And when we think about length of time, you mentioned a little bit, that a little bit is better than nothing. But I'm curious, I guess we always want to know, kind of like that minimum dosing effect. And so what is that minimum dosing effect?
Yeah, that's a good question. So in one paper, we could calculate the minimal effects to have some benefit. And we actually seen that during the half of the public health recommendations, about 75 minutes of moderate vigorous physical activity per week is already associated to about 15 less likely lower chances of developing depression. So that means about 15 minutes per day can be already associated to a lower risk of developing depression. And it's much easier for the vast majority of the population that are not active to achieve 75 minutes than achieving 150. So, and that's a quite important public health message, and saying, okay, if you're just doing physical 15 minutes per day, you can already benefit from exercise.
I'm curious, why don't you think that that's part of the messaging that we use? Because I mean, it's like the 150 minute, it's, I mean, I don't know. I'm just curious if you have any insights on that.
Yeah, we have just demonstrated that past year, and eventually the public health message is not built on quite recent evidence, and they are built also considering other health outcomes. So for achieving metabolic benefits, you may need a higher amount. For losing weight, you may need to spend more time in physical activity. And mental health, we can say that mental health is being largely ignored on public health guidelines when we think about on mental health benefits. So even for the guidelines that are developed for mental health professionals, mental health has been receiving very little attention. So even for the ones that are graduated in studying exercise, the focus is being on how can we improve strength, how can we improve aerobic capacity. This is what have been trained on, and we have been very little. We have been receiving very little training on how to make people feel good while they are exercising, and this explain in part the lack of attention that guidelines from all areas can give to or given to mental health outcomes.
Yeah, I really appreciate that insight, and also aware of how little of attention is given to physical activity and the connection to mental health. I mean, that's really why we're sitting here having this conversation today, is because I want to make sure that that's highlighted, but that interconnection between how physical activity impacts the brain and is a protective measure for depression and anxiety is something that largely is missing in the message, in my opinion.
Yes, and this is part of our current work, is trying to advocate for spreading this message, and that we should acknowledge the importance of mental health in public health guidelines, in guidelines that are trying to promote physical activity. And more than that, we have to understand that making people feel better and not feel bad when they are exercising is something that's quite important and valuable.
Absolutely. I'm also aware of our evidence-based world, right? And in order to become evidence-based, you're looking at research that's at least a decade old, if not more. So I tend to prefer evidence-informed, so that you're utilizing the latest research and adapting to what we know today versus something that we thought 10 to 15 years ago. But I don't know. I'll get off my soapbox now, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, we have some evidence, for example, that some evidence takes about 20 to 30 years to be applied in their fields. So what we have been researching now may take decades to get through the right population to be known and used by the ones who should use it. So there's a huge gap between what is being written and being published and what is actually being applied in the field.
Yeah, that makes so much sense to me. Can you speak to, I mean, we've been talking about public health, and I'd love for you to speak to the psychological determinants of physical activity.
So yes, something we have been using and applied one theory of the self-determination theory, that it's how it's called. And this theory basically says that we have three basic psychological needs. And these basic psychological needs are autonomy, are competence, and is connectedness. So basically what this theory says that when you are doing something because you want to do, this behavior is more likely to be sustainable, and it's more likely to make you feel better when you are doing it. When you are doing something that you feel competent, it's the same. So you fulfill this basic psychological need. And when you are connected to this behavior in somehow, it's more likely to be sustainable and to make you feel better as well. So that's quite interesting, because we have seen the CrossFit phenomenon. I think in the US is pretty much similar. And the CrossFit works very well with this theory in the sense that they create, at least here, from my experience in Brazil, they create a sense of connectedness. They have like a strong community sense. They have behavior that they adopt that make them identify as being a practicant of CrossFit. And they work with the sense of competence where everybody is trying to stimulate the others and to make them complete and achieve the activity and achieve the goals and achieve the aims, and they are working hard for that. Just a sense of autonomy that's not eventually that much valid, but the other two overweights this lack of autonomy eventually, and in the sense that people you can see from a distance that someone is practicing CrossFit. For example, if you talk to someone who is practicing CrossFit, they will make very clear and very quickly that they are doing CrossFit. And this is quite interesting from this perspective, because it works with the fulfillment of two at least basic psychological needs. And so what I'm trying to discuss here is that when you do something because you are doing it from yourself, because you're your own, because something that you enjoy, because it's something that you can see some value, and this is a behavior that can be sustainable in a long term and that will have more benefits. And when you achieve success in that activity, in that behavior, when you are exercising and doing something that makes you feel competent, it's more likely to be beneficial for your mental health. And if you do something that, any activity that make you feel connected to that activity, to that environment, to that society, to that group, to that person, so that's the best activity for you. And this is interesting, because when you see what's being in the field, eventually some people are going to the psychiatrist, to the doctor, and the doctor say, okay, now you have depression, and now you have to walk or to run for 30 minutes every day. And some people say, okay, but I hate walking, I hate running, that's something that I just don't want to do, but I would be very happy in going to the gym, or I would be very happy in cycling, or I would be very happy in swimming. And why not? As I have said earlier, the best exercise is the one that you do, and the exercise you enjoy is the one that's more likely that you just do it. So when you have these determinants and these basic psychological needs fulfilled, you are more likely to engage in this behavior. So even small, even little success in some activity can make you feel better, and why not? So this is a change in the perspective on how we should think about exercise. The main aim here is trying to promote well-being, is trying to make you feel better. So we have to reframe all the associated factors. We have to work with this logic and trying to change everything in terms of making people feel better.
Well, and I also think about what you said, the term movement, right? I use the term movement instead of physical activity, because physical activity can be really triggering for someone who has a complicated relationship with it. And so I hear what you're saying about, like, we need to really shift perspective to find things that people enjoy doing, right? And that's going to be different. What I enjoy, how I enjoy moving my body is likely different from how you enjoy moving your body. So there's the autonomy piece, right? And I would imagine like that's inherent in the CrossFit community because they enjoy moving their body in that way, right? And they chose to be part of that group too. So I love that. So putting all of that together, I think you've kind of touched on it, but how do we get people to move?
That's a 1 million question. So the response is very much individual. And I would ask you, how would you make someone eat better? And the best answer is trying to understand the relationship of the food, or trying to understand the relationship of that person has, or the relationship that person has with movement. So the best way to make someone move is trying to understand what are the barriers that individual face, and trying to understand what would be feasible in that context. The individualization of the prescription of exercise and physical activity in general is the best way to deal with it. So there is no single answer for that. The first thing is trying to understand the exercise that people values the most, the exercise that person has the best memories with. So, for example, for people that just hate doing strength training, you can try to promote, but it will be more challenging. If someone will just register at the gym, maybe try to go 1-2 times, and then we realize, oh, this is nothing. There's no value here. It's not for me. And so the first thing is trying to understand the effective experience that person has with different types of exercise, and then start doing. So the second thing is valuing even that and discussing that even little amounts of physical activity can be beneficial. For some people that are not active, achieve the public health recommendations may be quite difficult and quite challenging. So valuing that even little amounts can be beneficial in terms of mental health can motivate people to keep engaging in exercise. So once again, it's trying to change the relationship that person has with exercise. Lots of people, when they hear that they should exercise, they no, exercise, it's painful, it's bad, I don't feel good, it's uncomfortable. And why don't we try to explore what would be the best option for that individual? And that the best option, I mean, again, not just the exercise type, but every aspects of the context. Like some people may enjoy exercise hearing some music without having any contact with other persons, and some other people will enjoy exercising with some other people. So this is something to be explored. Some people will say, okay, I love exercising at the evening, and some other people will prefer doing very early in the day. So every factor should be accounted when we are trying to discuss how to incorporate physical activity in someone's life. And every detail should be accounted for, and everything should be discussed. And some people will say, like me, oh, I love doing intense and vigorous exercise. And this is not something that most people will enjoy. But if I'm just doing a brisk walk, probably this is not interesting for me. So that's not fun at all. So, but if I'm going to the gym and pushing the heaviest weight I can, well, that's fun for me. And that's why we don't have a single answer for that. But we have many factors that we should account for. And every person has its personal factors and its personal relationship with exercise. And this, the only way is exploring.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I am a national board certified health and wellness coach. And I remember years ago sitting in a public health class thinking about lifestyle factors and their impact on chronic disease, and thinking if we could just support people to make long-term behavior change, and then found health coaching and blah, 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 right? So, but that's the thing. Anytime I hear a client who says, I should be doing this, XYZ, then exploring that should and finding out, okay, what is that relationship like, and what what brings you joy when you move your body? How does moving your body, and in what ways, and all of those barriers? And there's a lot within all of that to kind of unpack and see how people enjoy moving.
Yeah, indeed. And trying to explore the affective memories, how people relate to exercise, how they feel in, and the memories are is an essential part of the physical activity and exercise promotion and behavioral change in general.
So, Felipe, as we wrap up, I'm wondering if there's anything else that you feel is important for our listeners to know or understand.
Well, I think that we covered the most relevant topics, and just the things, the message that I want to try to spread together with some colleagues is that first, some exercise is better than nothing. Second, that any step counts. So that's the logic that doing just little amounts could be beneficial. And second message is that you should try to understand what the exercise and the physical activity that makes more sense for you. So that makes more sense to you and it's likely the one that you enjoy the most and that you feel more comfortable, and that would be the best exercise. And also something that's important to know, I don't know how can you insert this in the talk, but that I didn't cover it before, is that eventually the environment, the gene environment and some other exercise environments can be very challenging and can be very distressful for some people. Like eventually people that are going to the gym and they are trying to start exercising, and especially for overweight people or people that are just feeling disconnected to that environment, that they just don't feel that they are going to the gym and seeing lots of fit people and strong people and they are overweight. Gym can be, for example, not just gym, but other exercise places can be a bit distressful. So something that we should try to work with people that are trying to experience exercise in these places is that you shouldn't focus on people that are very fit and people that are just trying to increase their strength and doing bad faces and wearing this little clothes. And the focus should be on yourself and how you feel during the exercise. This is the most important thing. So gym is not exactly a healthy and a peaceful environment for many people that are just feeling distressed by that. Indeed, gym can be a challenging place because you just feel disconnected. You don't feel connected, as we explored in the self-determination theory question, when you are feeling that you are attached to the person or to the context, to the place. You are more likely to engage, and when you don't feel it, it's just the chances are lower.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. All right, Felipe, it's been a joy to have you on today and to speak with you about this important topic. Thanks for shining some light on the importance of physical activity on mental health.
Well, thank you very much for having me here once again, and it was a pleasure for me.
Thank you for listening to CSAT Conversations, your resource for exploring behavioral health topics. We hope you found today's conversation timely and meaningful. Please share this podcast with your friends and colleagues. If you want to learn more, visit us at our blog at csatondemand.org.
CASAT Podcast Network. This podcast has been brought to you by the CASAT Podcast Network, located within the Center for the Application of Substance Abuse Technologies, a part of the School of Public Health at the University of Nevada, Reno. For more podcast information and resources, visit CASAT.org.